Welcome to Between Two Hops, a segment on the Taproom exclusive inspired by Inside the Actors Studio, where I get to know my guest a little better. I'm your host, Dean Zarbaugh. I'm joined today by Luke Purcell and Ben Northeim, brewers for Collision Bend Brewing Company in Cleveland, Ohio. Let's get started. Guys, what's your favorite style of beer to brew and to drink?
Me personally, I love the lagers, so German lagers. That just to me, that's what I could drink that every day, and I would never be upset.
Yeah.
So,
and to brew?
I'm the complete opposite. I actually love brewing the IPAs, but this is because it's fun to play around with all those different hops and see what you can get out of them. But to drink, yeah, I'm gonna go lagers all day.
Very cool. Luke?
I'm a porter and stout guy first. I always have been that way. I think probably, again, growing up in a time when there wasn't as many choices as there are now. Mm-hmm. In Cleveland, Guinness, with the Irish community in Cleveland, Guinness was a big deal, and so I learned to like Guinness. I would say more than maybe I really didn't like it at the beginning, and now I still love that beer. And when I got into brewing beer, that's what I made a lot of, was porters and stouts, and really fell in love with that style. So that's my favorite beer to drink, I would say.
Were you originally getting imported porters when you were first getting into them?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely, because there wasn't anything around here. And then, thankfully, Great Lakes decided to do the Edmund Fitzgerald, which I know, I'm sure you're aware, I worked there for a long time, but it was my favorite beer before I worked there, during the time, and I will still say it's still my favorite beer. So nice. I'll throw that out there.
There you go. Yeah. And then to actually brew.
My favorite style to brew has always been a real strong Scotch ale. Actually.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's
nice.
just really fun for me because
underappreciated style.
It's a little bit different of a brew day, and it takes a lot longer, and the aromas that come from it's a lot like similar to the Doppelbock style that we're tasting right now. Very, very caramely, very, very, very malty. But you actually get a lot of that flavor from just boiling and boiling and boiling, caramelizing in the kettle. And I think that's pretty cool. And it's a day of being patient, but it's an enjoyable day for me. For some reason, it's always been one. I learned that techniques early on from some brewers that were teaching me. I don't know. I just liked it. I don't know. I've always liked doing that beer. So
very cool. It's a style I really appreciate. On the opposite end of the spectrum, what's your least favorite style to brew? Something beer that just gets into you.
Anything with rye.
I was going to say either rye beers or smoked beers.
I was talking to...
that's because you don't like smoked beer.
I was talking to Mike over at Masthead, and he was saying, we were talking about using the word rye in a beer. It's like, that's one of the worst words you can use in actually like packaging like a beer. It's like, it's a red rye IPA or something like that. It's like, it turns people off, but it's a good style of rye.
Yeah, they taste. I enjoy drinking them.
Yeah,
but
I'm with you.
To brew with them is a nightmare. It's super gummy and it sticks the mash.
I can only imagine.
Makes for a super long day, and it's not fun.
It's just not a friendly grain for brewing with. No. That's all it is. Wheat's tough to do, but we've learned, and then there's centuries behind wheat and people brewing with wheat. So there's things you can do to get through that day. And so some brewers might say wheat beer just because it's a little bit longer of a day, but it's their own fault if it is. Really at this point in time, there's things like ways to get through that. So rye, I don't. Unless you're just dropping in like a couple grains, like throwing them in by hand and just saying, "Oh, there's rye in there," But it really does offer a cool flavor to a beer. So it's intriguing, and depending on what kind. There's been numerous styles that have been brewed with rye by lots of great brewers, and I've enjoyed many of them. I had a rye porter from Founders Brewing up in Michigan, which was awesome. I love that beer. And there goes my porter thing again, but yeah, that just adds a little spice, as you would imagine, and something about rye with hoppy beers that was really popular for a while. The rye IPAs, I think, was like this. It wasn't that you necessarily tasted the rye to me, but it was this clean bitterness that came out because of something in there. Gotcha. I'm not sure about the science behind that, but that's what I always found in those rye IPAs. I actually enjoyed that style a lot, but to brew them. Worst brew days I've ever had were always rye.
In the ass. Oh, yeah. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
That's a good one.
That's a really good question.
Really good question.
So when I was younger, I always wanted to be a professional baseball player.
Nice.
I was in Cincinnati one time doing a talk about beers, and I forgot where I was, and someone said that's kind of that same question. It's like, what did you want to be when you were growing up? Kind of thing. I was like, I wanted to be a catcher for the Cincinnati Reds, which is true. Like, that's true. What I really thought I was going to be, because I loved Johnny Bench when I was growing up.
All right, yeah.
And I literally started cheering down there, like, that's awesome. And I'm like, why are they cheering for me? Like, oh my gosh, I'm in Cincinnati. So that's kind of funny.
One time someone asked, we went down to Florida when John Glenn went back to space in '98, and someone asked me on the way, like, I got interviewed by Channel 5 at the airport in Orlando. They're like, what do you want? Do you want to be an astronaut when you grow up? I was like, yeah. And they're like, what do you want? How are you going to do that? I said, bring up my math and science grades.
There you go. Yeah, right.
Like, Ben, if you had to pick
you know what? It's right what you were just saying. When I was a kid, I've still to this day, I've always been fascinated with outer space.
Nice.
Thought it was cool. But I'm also have a slight fear of heights.
I get you.
So
I get you.
I always kind of wanted to be an astronaut, but then I was like, I don't know if I can.
That's really high up.
That's really high.
So I always thought that'd be fun, but
yeah, absolutely, dude. I love space
I'll stay
too,
on the
man.
ground and brew beer.
What profession would you not like to attempt?
Brewing. Is that just a warning out there to all you people that think it's a great idea? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think I could do what my wife does, which is like work in a hospital and be around.
I'm a terrible patient, so.
Yeah, I'm a terrible patient too, but blood and guts don't bother me when they're mine.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Someone else's, get me away.
Yeah, I don't like it, so she can stick to that, and I'll stay away.
It's to me, there's not a specific one necessarily that I wouldn't like. I mean, that's things like that. The hospital doesn't bother me, but I think anything that you spend the majority of your time at a desk, I think really is what I would say. Anytime we have to sit behind the computer and everything, like I think every profession has to do that a little bit nowadays,
right?
To some extent, but yeah, if you had to be there all day and doing that, that's something I wouldn't want to do.
Absolutely. What hurdles did you personally face, and how have you overcome them? We're getting deep.
Yeah, we are.
Like personal, professional, or
professional hurdles in the.
I'll go right to my beginning of my brewing career. At Great Lakes, there was 8 of us in the brewery, and five of us out of the 8 were brewers, and for some reason they didn't think I was going to be good in the brew house or something, because it took them like a year and a half before I finally even got my first crack at brewing a beer.
Oh wow!
And I was like, I don't know what's going on around here, because obviously was the best brewer in the room,
right?
So I'll go to that. Like, I just kept pressing, and every time that one of the spots opened up, I threw my name in there and went in through the processes, and I think they finally just was like, all right, just put him in the brew house and tell him to shut up. So. But it was a big deal, and as I found out, it's not necessarily like all parts are equal when it comes to brewing. But everybody that gets into it, I think, wants to be in that brew house and be able to call themselves a brewer. So just at least getting to that point, and then it was a big deal for me.
Absolutely. Ben?
Oh, I would have to say just finding a career path in general that I actually liked and wanted to stick with.
Okay.
Just from the time I got out of school. Sticking with something that I enjoy, that was probably the biggest hurdle.
What'd you major in?
So I went to a technical college and did automotive repair.
Okay.
And I still
more for film.
I still love fixing cars and stuff like that, but not as a career.
Yeah.
And then I just worked a bunch of terrible retail jobs for a long time and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I did some painting work, and so. When my buddy showed me brewing, I was like, "Oh, this is it!"
There it is.
I knew within a week after brewing my first beer, I was like, "This is what I want to do."
I think that happens with pretty much everybody in this industry. It happens really quick when you know.
Yeah, a lot of times I was just going to say that it's a common story where people knew pretty quickly once they started brewing that that's what they wanted to do, or knew pretty quickly that that's not what they wanted to do. It really is one or the other. A lot of times, I think. I mean, I have known people that have kind of worked at a brewery or kind of got a little bit of the experience and kind of slowly kind of eased into it. But most of the time, it's like people want to be a brewer or they don't.
Right. What was the most interesting trend in craft beer that you saw in 2018?
I think it was the Brewed IPA.
Yeah.
It was like
Brewed.
the Brewed came along, and it was like, I think Ben alluded to it earlier. We both have kind of the same tastes on that side about the New England style, although we've utilized a lot of the hopping methods from that style.
Mm-hmm.
We don't necessarily like the milkshake part of that,
Right.
or whatever you want to
The
call it.
lactose side.
And so when the Brute style started popping up, to me, it was, and I'm the same way as Ben, I like a nice dry beer. So, like, to me, that was a little bit more appealing. So I would definitely go with that.
Yeah, I would have to agree just because it was such a, especially when we made ours.
And plus, who thought there was going to be another different kind of IPA? you know?
Right.
Like, how could we think of another
We
one?
maxed it out, but wait.
Wait, there's one more idea.
I read a lot about them when they first started popping up, but there weren't any brewers around here really making them yet. So when we did it, we brewed one with Madcap out in Kent.
Oh, nice.
I used to work with Vince at the Brew Kettle, so we got together and we wanted to do one. So when we made it and we actually got to drink it when it was done, I was like, this is what an IPA should be. Like super dry, but you get all those hop aromas and flavors without a ton of bitterness.
You got to be careful about how many hops. You know, if you calculate your hops the normal way, without having that, even that little bit that you usually have in the residual sugar that you usually have in an IPA, even that's really dry, that little bit makes such a difference in the balance of perceived bitterness.
Really?
Like, you got to be really careful. Yeah, like, because you can over bitter it really easily, I would imagine.
We targeted, I think, 20 IBUs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it probably tasted more like 60,
Wow.
70.
It brings it in because the sugar's balanced.
Outside, right? So
That's nuts.
Yeah.
It's a really fun style. If you had to pick your least favorite trend in 2018 that you just didn't,
Anything that has to do with dessert or cake or
I would say
Pastry
any
steps.
sort of
pastry.
stouts,
Thank you. Yeah. Anything. For me, it's just, I get it. I do get it.
Yeah, there's a market for
It's
it for
fun.
sure.
For people, and they like to try different things.
Absolutely.
But yeah, for me, no thanks.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way on that one.
Absolutely, nothing against it. It's just
Right. It's not for
it's
me.
not.
Right.
If we all like the same kind of thing, there'd only be one style.
Exactly.
What is one piece of practical advice you would give someone starting out in this industry?
Don't.
Seems to be the common thing.
Yeah.
Education, just.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity now.
That's where it's at.
You know, and for me, like, I say this a lot to people when they're asking about the industry. For someone that's been around for a little while, it's amazing the quality standards now compared to when I started. Quality levels, your expectations should be high. Going into any brew pub, brewery, buying anything off the shelf, your expectations should be high because the opportunity and information is just there. It really is, and there's no excuse. There's no excuse to, we're all going to make our styles in our own, the way we interpret them and everything like that. And not everyone's going to like the way we do it, or not everyone's going to like the way another brewery does it. And that's okay, as long as you're going to be like, as long as you're putting out the top quality, you're following best practice and doing it. And there's no excuse not to follow best practice.
Absolutely.
There's no excuse not to get educated on it. The opportunity is there now. It's not like 25 years ago when it was like a bunch of us just like, let's try this next. Let's try this next. And why do you think this is happening? And, the opportunity for education is there. So take advantage of it is what I would tell everybody.
I would agree. And don't let all your friends convince you that you're making the best beer in the world at home, because you're probably not.
Yeah. Get an unbiased opinion.
Right.
If you could send a message to yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell the younger you?
Don't give up.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Yeah, 10 years?
10 years.
Can I go back farther?
If you want to.
No, I'm just kidding. I'll go by the rules. 10 years ago? Oh, I would probably say, I don't know. 10 years ago, I was feeling pretty good about everything 10 years ago. I'd probably say maybe go branch out on your own a little bit sooner. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's got to be. It's a risk jumping out on your own. Yeah. I can only imagine. More power to you for doing it, man. Yeah. Last question: what or who has been the biggest influence in your brewing career?
Ooh, that's tricky because my boss is sitting right there.
That's awesome.
Obviously, my brewing career has not been that long, so between Luke here and Jack Geppert from the Brew Kettle, those two for sure.
He just put my name in because I'm sitting next to him. So that's a shout out to Jack.
Don't tell anybody.
I could put Jack on that list. Right. Actually, he's awesome. Andy Tavikram, easy. You know, I mean, there's
Andy's
tons,
such a nice dude.
There's tons and tons and tons of them, but Andy Tavikram, he gave me a chance. He hired me. I homebrewed with him after I had only been homebrewing for a few months. Actually, just random chance, met him through one of his neighbors.
Oh wow!
And he was so cool. He's like, come. He's like, tell him to come over. I mean, I didn't even meet him actually. I asked the guy, like, can I meet him? Can I meet him? You know. And he's like, he said to just come over Saturday. They're brewing in the basement. And I was like, okay. You know? and really, that's what changed my life. So, and everything else he did after that too. I loved the way he managed us. I loved the way he gave us a chance to properly use our new ideas, rather than just like, he didn't let us do whatever we wanted to, but as long as it was properly planned out and presented to him, he let us experiment and do things, and it was awesome. He's an awesome guy. So
very cool. Luke, Ben, thank you so much for your time. Tune in next month for another edition of Between Two Hops. Catch up on past episodes by subscribing to the Taproom exclusive on YouTube.